Eins, zwei, drei, vier.
Gefühlt. I can't pronounce it because it has an umlaut in it. It's hard for me. See, even after 30 years speaking German, it's hard for me to pronounce umlauts. That tells you a lot about umlauts and about me, I guess. But gefühlt, it means, it's the past tense of feeling, feel. It means felt. And it implies a subjective experience of something that is not necessarily objectively true. The basic thing that it's used for, it's almost always used for weather. You go outside and there's a cold wind blowing, so it feels cold, it feels freezing. So it's das gefühlte weather as opposed to the actual weather. It's subjectively experienced, gefühlt. And of course, we as human beings, we're fooling ourselves all the time about everything that we do. A lot of what we do or experience is just nonsense, but gefühlt, it's all true. Gefühlt, it's all real. You can say, gefühlt, she's in love. She thinks she's in love, but actually she's just trying to get revenge on her daddy. She's not really in love. Gefühlt, I'm in a relationship. I'm a stalker. Gefühlt, I'm in a relationship. You can say, gefühlt, I'm very successful because one guy read my book. Now, that's gefühlte success. Gefühlte failure. You could say, well, one guy read my book, I'm a failure. Well, one guy reading the book, actually, that's not too bad. You wrote the book. So are you a gefühlte success or a gefühlte failure? How about gefühlte political opinion? He has a political opinion, or he thinks he has a political opinion, but it's not really his political opinion. He's just talking nonsense. He's just repeating things he's heard. It's a gefühlte political opinion. Or gefühlte intelligence. He thinks he's intelligent, but he's not intelligent enough to realize that he's not intelligent. This word got me in trouble once. I was writing a series of articles for a German paper. Of course, Germans are very big on pointing out racism in America. It's very important for them to know that all Americans are racist, and racism is out of control in America, and it's just a huge thing. It's bigger than anywhere else in the world, and the newspapers are always full. Anytime you have some kind of story in America about racism, the German newspapers will pick it up and make a big thing out of it. And of course, the reason is, that they don't want to face the fact that they also have a racism problem. When the great migration from the Muslim world started in, 2014, 2015, up to that time, Germans all thought of themselves as completely anti-racist and completely, they don't see color, and they would never think of another race as inferior to them. But of course, it's a very white society. They don't have many other races here. You don't feel surrounded by people of other colors. You don't feel threatened by it. So you don't realize that deep down inside you are actually racist. But when the Great Migration began in 2014, 2015, of all these Muslims coming in, suddenly everyone in Germany was anti-Muslim. There was a huge thing, and they realized that these are the worst people. They want to rape our women. They want to take our money. They want to kill us all and change us into Muslims. It was this incredible outpouring of absolute racism. All the people who had said before, this racism in America, and it's so terrible. I'm so glad we're not racist here. They were immediately said, oh yeah, but the Muslims have to go. And so I wrote a story in an article about gefühlte racism, subjectively experienced racism. And then I pointed out a kind of a thing where this was big. Black Lives Matter was big. And so people would be on the street in major cities all over America every day on the street protesting, doing a Black Lives Matter protesting against racism. And I looked over at Germany, and I would go through, the middle of town in Germany, and there were also groups of Germans standing out with signs protesting. But they were protesting the influx of migrants. They weren't protesting against racism. They were protesting against tolerance of other races or of other people. And I said, well, with all these articles about racism in America, the Germans gefühlt think that racism in America is much bigger than in Germany. But if you look at studies, and there are studies about racism, it's about the same. Americans tend to feel that their racism is more than it is, while Germans tend to feel that their racism is less than it is. And so I wrote this and I said, Gefühlt, the Germans are not as racist as Americans, but, if you look at it objectively, you kind of have a problem here too, folks. And they hated me for that. I got all kinds of letters and comments and emails about, American go home, things like that. Well, I've been waffling on now for I don't know how many minutes. I've been going on and on, meandering, telling stories that no one wants to. There's probably no one out there listening anymore. But Gefühlt, everyone's listening to me. I'm talking to the world, see? Gefühlt. You can apply it to almost anything. It should be applied to almost anything because most things we think about in life are subjectively different from the way they are in reality.
1, 2, 3, 4.